you do not hack it. You do not get people's attention.
Yes, yeah.
You earn it. Because let me make it abundantly clear. Everyone else in this world can go spend their time doing whatever else that it is. The fact that they spend 30 seconds with you of their life is fucking phenomenal. And like most people don't have that level of appreciation. That's why I love this whole social thing, because I'm like, again, we could be doing anything with our life. I could be sitting in the sun right next to that Volvo if I wanted to, just to get some sunlight on me. But like the fact that I'm here recording a podcast, or the fact that I'm like watching a reel, it's time. It is time that is all finite.
Yeah.
And like the fact that someone spends that with you, any second of that, like it is valuable.
Hey everyone, this is Eden Podcast. We're on here with Enrico Incarnati. He's a social media coach. Do you want to say? I know we talked about
Strategist consultant.
Strategist consultant. Makes a ton of free content on YouTube, Instagram, TikTok. Also does consulting and everything like that. And yeah, we're super stoked to talk to him and have him on.
Welcome, Enrico.
Thank you.
We're excited to have you. I know I have so many questions for this podcast, and I know so many people are going to want to learn so much from you, because tattooers, they're just starting to get into social media, and we all have a little bit of trouble, honestly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's funny. I wouldn't say it's starting to get into social media in a different way, because like I feel like in the past, it's been so easy for tattooers to grow on Instagram, because like all they got to do is post pictures of their tattoos and that's it. But I feel like it's changed like a lot, specifically like in the past couple of years. And now you're seeing like even tattooers with like tons of followers like stop growing completely, or just not getting like the reach and the engagement they're used to getting. So yeah, it's definitely an interesting conversation. So I've been telling people about your podcast episode coming up, and how would you describe yourself? Are you like a social media marketing coach, or?
I mean, honestly, man, I would just say I'm a 95% Italian kid who just has an unhealthy obsession for content and coffee.
Yeah.
And that's pretty much it. I don't label myself. I hate when people are like, oh, like social media guru. I'm like, I don't resonate with that. And not even like a social coach. Just because it's like I just love content, and just there's such an unhealthy passion for it. Because it's like, again, I literally wouldn't be here today if it wasn't for that. So it goes beyond like the whole, I label myself as more like a strategist and coach and everything and consultant, but it's so much more than that for me.
Yeah,
so.
Totally. Yeah, I definitely can see in you have like a lot of passion in your videos. Yeah,
I appreciate it.
Yeah, it's cool. Like you can tell it's authentic, and like you really just like care about helping people and stuff.
And
Thank
it's
you.
Captivating too.
Thank you.
I think because you can see your passion through it as well. And there's so many tips you have. There's like 3 hooks, the hooks that you shouldn't be using anymore. So 7 strategies. I want to get into all of that. I'm also just curious how you got into loving social media and content.
That's a great question. So I actually was supposed to be a doctor, and I was supposed to be a pediatrician. And even at like 17 years old, I was a certified nursing assistant. And like I was going to be a doctor. Like my father had it planned out for me that I was going to go to Mount Sinai in like Los Angeles. Because he was like, this is gonna be the great school, and it was like the prestige for him of you're gonna make $400,000 a year, like you're gonna be a doctor, like it was like the title, and it was like a for sure thing. And even from like a young age, like I had a love for the medical field, and a passion for like wanting to help kids, and like because that was something for me. I'm like, I hated going to the doctor. I still do today, and I never will go. And that was just something that like I wanted to help kids overcome. And like I said, it became more of my father's thing, because my dad felt more in love with it as I got older. And the reason I bring up getting a certified nursing assistant license at 17 is because in high school, that's when I took all the classes necessary to get ready for prerequisite of health sciences. And I took I remember, I always say this, I took a AP chemistry class in senior of high school. Fucking hated it. And I realized then, I'm like, I don't like this. But I'm like, okay, you know what? I'm going to just kind of go through it. And I needed to do this to get ready. I think I got like a C in that class, so I got by. And again, I enrolled in health sciences at DePaul University. I grew up from Chicago. And again, like freshman year, I had to take chemistry again, and I remember I had labs until like 9 p.m. on Monday night, and it was interesting because one of our assignments for a class that we had, I don't think I've ever said this, we had to find someone who was doing what we were doing, and one of those people, I was kind of testing, like, do I want to go into the like pediatrics, or do I want to go into like like sports medicine? And one of the people that I found that I got in touch with was the team doctor for the White Sox, Chicago Bulls, and Blackhawks. His name was Dr. Brian Cole, and I had to interview him for like 30 minutes for like a class project, and
That's fucking cool that you got a hold of him though, and
it was wild. I had to go through so many loops, but I literally said, I'm like, I will call him on his way home, so it doesn't take up any time. Like I'm a DePaul student kid. Like we have to do this for a project. I think it was like I think it was like a 20-30 minute interview. And I remember I was interviewing him outside in the snow during like December, and he was just telling me about all these things and how long it took and everything. And I'm like, fuck this, because I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm gonna be mid-30s and I'm just gonna now be like set, right? And that was something for me. I'm like, holy cow, I have to dedicate the next 15 years of my life. And that was something for me that was a little bit alarming, is because not that I wanted success faster, but I was just like, that's a long time.
Yeah, for sure, especially for something that you're not like passionate about. Like I feel like the people that want to be doctors and they're like, dude, I know it's going to take 15 years or whatever, but like this is what I want to do. And so then it makes it worth it, the payoff at the end. But if you don't want to do it, then that's 15 years of your life. That's like, I mean, that's like could be a quarter of your life, you know? Yeah.
I know. And what's even crazier is during high school, I had already started planting the seeds that I just didn't want to do this, because I remember we had to take it was a test. It was called the PLAN test, the PLAN. It was before the ACT or the SATs. I know some people take junior year. And this test.
How old are you, by the way?
Then?
How old are you
right now? 28.
Okay, gotcha.
Yep. And we had to take this test to kind of almost like align ourselves with like the career that we're supposed to be doing. And this is one thing I hate about the school system. They put you in this fucking box you have to like stay in.
Totally.
And I would rig that test, so then that way, and what by rig, I mean I would answer it like a doctor would, not how Enrico wanted to.
Yeah.
That way when I got the results, I would show my father of like, see, I'm supposed to be a doctor. Like, be proud of me.
Wow.
Wow.
Even though I'm like, I don't want to be doing this, but I know my dad's going to be happy, so it just kind of not gets him off my back, but it just soothes his bias of Rico should be a doctor. And let me be clear too, he's told all of his friends, my entire family, I am the oldest child amongst my entire family. Like, I am the kid that like everyone looks at, like amongst my cousins and brothers and everything. And so that's like a lot of pressure when people are already at like 16, 15 being like, oh, like you're Enrico the doctor. And I'm like, I'm 15. I am not Enrico the doctor.
You're like, I'll be a doctor in 20 years.
Right. Yeah. So it was already then where I was just like, these little things that I kind of was building resentment towards. And like I had mentioned, when I got into college then, it slowly became more of a battery drain. And I remember one day I was walking to the gym after lab, and it was on the Monday, and I open my phone and I pull up Instagram, and there's a clip from a man named Gary Vaynerchuk, Gary V, and he was like, I would rather you spend the next 2 to 3 years of your life doing what you want to do, not pleasing your parents, versus the next 80 years of your life resenting them because you did what they wanted you to do. And I paused on that because like that hit me like a fuck ton of bricks.
But like he was talking to you.
Right.
Yeah.
Wow.
And I'm like, that's me. And let me be abundantly clear. Now I have to go to my father, who is an immigrant from Italy, who came over here with $2,000 to make a life for himself. He's a phenomenal entrepreneur. He's someone I look up to. Being like, hey, some guy on the internet, on Instagram, is telling me that I'm going to resent you, and I don't want to do this. I had to have that conversation with my dad that I'm like, I don't want to do this anymore. And he's then like, cool, now what? And I'm like, well, I don't know, but let me just figure it out. And he's like, why am I going to pay for you to figure it out? I said, fair point. I said, if I don't figure it out within a year of whatever that is, like, well, I'll pull me out of school. I'll go get a job wherever and like start paying off student loans, but just give me a year. I had no fucking plan of what I was going to do. Like deer in headlights, lost. I went to my guidance counselor, dropped the whole medical school thing. And that was something for me that I'm like, it was almost like a relief, but also now fear sets in of like, fuck, what am I going to do? But also in a complete identity crisis, because I'm like, I am no longer this thing that I said I was going to be.
Totally.
And this thing that I've been embodying. And I'm like, who the fuck am I? I'm like, I have no clue what I'm going to be doing, but I know what I didn't want to do.
I was going to say, was it like relieving at all when you're like, okay, I don't have to wear this mask anymore, or I don't have to wear this guise of, oh, I'm going to be a doctor, when you never wanted to do that in the first place?
Absolutely. But it was also extremely anxiety producing, because now it's like, I know my dad is still looking at me of like, you could have been a better son. Like you know what I mean? Like I look at it of like, and I don't feel this way, but then it was like you could have been a doctor. Like you could still go to this. You know what I mean? And it was just hard, because then it's like, now what am I going to do? Right? Yes, I dropped everything and I defaulted to like a communications major. I remember I took like some bullshit journalism class and like a video editing class. Just because again, I was like just trying to figure it out. But it was such a relief, because I'm like, I no longer have to do whatever this is or whatever this entails. And like I said, I didn't know what I wanted to do, but I certainly got a lot of clarity on what I did not want to do, surely.
Yeah.
And it was hard because, like, my father and I had a not a terrible relationship, but it was weird.
I bet.
Like, for the next 2 to 3 years. And it's weird that, like, Gary even said, like, the next 2 to 3 years, like, displeasing them. But it was really weird, right? And that's the time when like I said, I'm like, I lost all identity myself, and I'm just like, I have no clue what I'm going to do. I was like, my dad's never going to be happy, and like my mom's not going to be happy, and like everyone else that views me. And again, like, you're a young kid at that time, like you care about other people's opinions.
Totally.
Now I look at it, I'm like, I don't give a fuck what you think about me. But then it's just like, well, when everybody else is kind of giving you this praise, it's like, how can you not care? And that's when I hit the lowest fucking point of my life. And that's why I have this tattoo. It says Forza, which means strength in Italian, because I attempted suicide. And I remember I was in my apartment, and yeah, I mean, that was like a moment where I was just like, I'm kind of just done with this shit, and I don't think anything that I will do will ever amass to my father's approval. And I cared a lot about what my dad thought, because my dad's always been like an anchor in my life, and yeah, it's just a weird fucking thing. And like my girlfriend at the time too, like, she saw that I had like done something, and she got really fucking upset with it. And it's really weird actually that I'm here doing this, talking with you guys, because I went to get this tattoo like a few days after, and like even the tattoo artist is like, you have like some scarring here, like what happened? And I'm like, oh, nothing, yada yada, you know what I mean? I just almost wanted to have this as a cover up. But I have it here as like a reminder to me that like, no matter how much like shit gets hard, or like anything that not that I complain about now, but just anything that is hard, it's just like I remember like I have this here for me, and I have it on the inside of my wrist, so then it's just like something that's like for me only. But I'm obviously grateful that I was able to like get through that, and I think it put me on the other side of just understanding like, okay, well, what are the things that I can't control? I can't control what other people are going to say about me, or feel about me, or think about me with, you know, my career choices or life choices or anything. And that's when I really got more connected with fitness and like the gym and everything. And like, I really put a lot of energy into there, because I really started to educate myself on tracking calories and like understanding protein, carbs, fats, and like working out, and, you know, all the benefits of that. And I really I would like skip class sometimes, because I'm like, I'm going to go work out. I don't want to go to class. Because I even hated the classes that I was in.
Yeah.
And I would rather go work out. And the reason I say that is because I fell in love with a lot of people like on social media. And like, you go down a rabbit hole when you first get into something, you're going to search all the articles on, at that time it was like bodybuilding.com, and like Steve Cook was a massive pillar, and you buy all the protein powders and all this shit. And I followed a couple people at the time who really helped ground me a lot. Was Christian Guzman, who is the owner of Alphalete Athletics, and Max Tuning, who is the owner of Sour Strips. And it's cool because I didn't know anything about these people, but I felt like I knew everything about them through a camera, through YouTube.
Yeah.
And that was something for me that I'm like, that's cool. And another one of my biggest inspirations that got me through literally every single day is Casey Neistat. who phenomenal YouTuber. I don't know if you're familiar with him. He's probably one of the best vloggers, storytellers of like the generation. And it's actually funny. Him and his wife and I share a birthday. And he was one of the people that like every time he'd post a video every single day, because he was doing his daily vlogging challenge back then in like 2017, 18. I would always look forward to it because I'm like, it was an escape for me. And he was someone that I took a lot of inspiration from, because at the time I was working at my school's gym and obviously wasn't getting like a ton of money, but I was getting enough to be able to afford a camera and microphones and everything. And I remember I went and bought a GoPro because I'm like, I'm going to try this vlogging thing out, because at that time I was just giving tips on like fitness stuff on like Snapchat and like trying to help people with fitness things. And my girlfriend at the time was like, why don't you make a YouTube channel? I'm like, great idea. And that's when that weekend I went to Best Buy. I bought a GoPro, and my first ever video was filmed on a GoPro. And it's crazy to look back at now, because I'm like, there was no direction with it. It was just messy, sloppy action, but it was fun. Like, it was so fun to do that. And I felt like I was a part of them. I felt like I was a part of like Christian or Case, like these people that I'd look up to, these pillars in my life. Yeah. And I remember I would go skip class, because I had class downtown as well in the city. And I would skip class to go film like a B-roll clip of like a time lapse for my vlog that like my mom was going to watch and like 2 other people. Yeah. But I'm like, this is so fun. Yeah. You know? Wow. And it was cool because I saved up enough money to buy like my first camera, which was a Canon T5i with like a Rode video mic. And I'm like, I feel like I'm a YouTuber. I feel like I'm like vlogging, and I'm like, I have 127 subscribers, but I'm like, this is so cool. Yeah. And it was fun because that was like my outlet for me. That was something that I love doing. I could control the edit. I could control my own fucking story, right? And like, that was something for me that I'm like, this is power. I'm like, this isn't power in the sense of like I could leverage this or I know how to make money from this, but like this is power where like I get to fucking tell the story. Yeah, totally. You know what I mean?
Yeah. After feeling like you couldn't for so long.
Correct. And that's something for me that as an artist, I kind of it just fell into my lap. It wasn't something that like I actually had pursued. It was just something that I'm like, I enjoy this, right? And it's cool because 2017. I remember it was January around this time, and actually no, sorry, March. And crazy to think that was 7 years ago. And Christian Guzman was hosting his first ever, like it was called Summer Shredding, and it was a 90-day challenge to like not lose as much weight, but like get as shredded as possible. Yeah. And then you'd fly down to Houston to meet up with everyone. This was like his first big event, and I'm like, I want to do this. And so I did it for the 90 days. And it's cool because I flew down to Houston with like 2 of my other buddies, and I'm like, I met everyone who I had like lived through on my computer. Yeah. And it was fun because I'm like, wow, everyone here, I feel like they all get it. Like they're all vlogging, filming, and everything. But that was something that I felt like a part of a real community for. Yeah, yeah. And it was fun because I met a man there who I had followed, and obviously, like I said, when you get into something, you go down a rabbit hole, you find other people. And I met a man named Zach Rushlow, who is the Flexible Dieting Lifestyle on Instagram. And he was around like 60, 70K then, but I'm like, I had known of him, and I'm like, dude, like this is super cool that I'm like meeting you, yada, yada. And he's like, yeah, man, send me a DM. Like, I'd love to send you a recipe book of mine, because he makes a lot of like macro-friendly, calorie-friendly recipes. And I'm like, oh, cool, that's awesome. And so we exchanged pleasantries, yada, yada. And, you know, a day after he sent me his recipe book, I'm like, oh, that's cool. So then I flew back home to Chicago, and again, was still in school and working my school's gym and everything. And it was like now the summertime, so class wasn't in session as much. I was still working at the gym. And so one thing that I omitted is I had to get surgery during this period because I had torn my hip labral the year prior because I played soccer for 14 years. And then when I transitioned to weightlifting, it was a completely different load on my body. And so it just snapped. And I was squatting. And I bring it up because it's extremely important for this next part. I had to get surgery after the event, after summer shredding, so 2 weeks after. And I was like on crutches, and mind you, I was supposed to be getting a lot of rest. And Zach, who I had just met at summer shredding, put on his Instagram story that he was looking for a videographer to travel with him for 5 days to go to Los Angeles. And I'm like, this is cool. I'm like, something in me was like, respond. And so I responded, and I said, hey, Zach, would love this opportunity, man. Just left it. And so he responded back. He's like, hey, bro, there's 2 other people that are in front of you. They're way more experienced. Why should I choose you? I had only vlogged myself at the time. I had not done any professional work. I didn't have any professional skills with anything. I'm like, I'll work harder than both of them combined. And he's like, all right. He's like, can you find a way here? I'm like, yep. And so we exchanged like details and everything. And 2 days later, flew to LA for 5 days. I didn't tell him that I had crutches or anything, that I got surgery, because I didn't want it to be a limiting factor.
Yeah.
And I get there. I remember I was at the rental car company Sixt, S-I-X-T.
Yeah.
And because I was waiting for him to get off his flight, yada, yada. And he sees me. He's like, bro, what the hell happened? I'm like, I'm fine. Don't ask about it. I'm like, I promise we're good. I'm like, I got surgery, but we're good. He's like, are you sure you can? I'm like, literally don't ask. I'm like, I promise I'm fine. And like, was not supposed to be traveling. I was in a fuckload of pain. But I'm like, I'm going to do it because I just have to. And it was cool because I filmed him for the next 5 days. And then that turned into a full-time position with him, where I left school with 1 year left and cut all ties with it. And I moved to Austin, Texas, and worked with him for the next year. And it was more of like an internship kind of exchange.
Yeah.
And again, learned a shitload. But what's also really cool is I went to an event with Zach in LA in January of 2018. And because I had moved August of 2017 to Austin. And so we went.
So this all happened like
quick,
yeah.
Really quick. And I had moved, or we had flown to Los Angeles in January of 2018. And it was a Pencils of Promise event that was hosted by Lewis Howes. And, there were other like fitness people there that I had known of. And one man in particular was Gary Vaynerchuk's personal trainer. I knew him as Gary V's personal trainer, not as Jordan Syatt, which is what his name is. And I'm like, bro, super cool to meet you. I'm like, I've been a big fan of Gary's. Are you guys familiar with Gary V at all?
Yeah.
A little bit. And we just again, we exchanged numbers and whatever. And then that following March of 2018, that was my time up with Zach. I had flown back home to Chicago, and I was kind of faced with like figuring it out again, right? And like I got a job at Whole Foods. How
did your dad feel about all this, by the way?
It's a great question. It's interesting coming from someone who was just learning about this whole social media thing and being like, you mean to tell me you're going to go move somewhere from someone that you met online that you know nothing about? And like, not even just that, you're going to go fly with him for 5 days. And like, I lived with Zach when I was in Austin. And, wow. and this is, again, all new to my dad, but I'm just like, again, this is me figuring it out, Dad. Like, let me just kind of go through this.
Yeah.
I'm like 21, 22.
Yeah.
And he was unsure about it, but he supported it. I don't even know if he fully supported it, but he was just unsure about it. He's like, all right, I guess you know what you're doing.
Yeah.
He was just like watching back from the sidelines, right? And I flew back home to Chicago. Like I said, like I moved back home and everything. And, he's still like, you could go back to school, like you could, you know what I mean, like in my ear a little bit. And I'm like,
yeah.
I'm fine. Like I'm still figuring it out, right? Like I said, I got a job at Whole Foods, and I even did like Uber Eats and like DoorDash and everything. And I got a part-time job at like this car photography place. And what's really cool is Jordan, who I had met back at this event in LA, put on his Instagram story that he was looking for a videographer. And I replied, and I'm like, bro, I'd love this opportunity, yada, yada. He had lived in New York City at the time because Gary lives in New York. And he's like, hey, man, there's a kid in front of you. If this doesn't work out within 90 days, I'll call you. I think it was November or December of 2018. I'm on the Stairmaster at Lifetime Fitness at the gym. And I look down at my phone, and it says Jordan Syatt. I'm like, the fuck's he calling me for? And he's like, hey, bro. And I'm like, I'm like gassed on the Stairmaster. I'm like, what's up, man? He's like, are you okay? I'm like, I'm great. I'm fine. I'm like, what's up? He's like, you want to move to New York City? I'm like, yup. He's like, you can think about it. It's like, you can take 2 to 3 days. I'm like, I don't need to think. I'm like, let's do it. Like 100%. I didn't even take into consideration like what good pay is for it, but it was almost like the situation I was in. I'm like, I don't want to be here anymore. Let's go do this. because we had known each other a little bit. And literally, I went to New York City 2 weeks later for the first time in my life to go hang with him for a weekend just to kind of get to know each other. And then 2 weeks after that, I moved my entire life, 2 suitcases, all my gear and everything, to a Chinatown apartment with 6 other roommates in Manhattan, paying $1,100 a month, and for a really shitty apartment. But I did it. I like moved to New York City and I was doing it. And then what was really cool is Jordan was like, "Hey, do you want to come train Gary with me one morning?" And I'm like, "Absolutely." And so we go to Upper East Side where he's living, and I'm just like sitting in his apartment, like on one of those couches, not in his apartment, his lobby. And Jordan's like, "Oh, like Gary's coming down." And so I'm like, "Oh shit!" I'm like getting nervous. I'm like, "This is so cool." And
Because you hadn't met him at this point, right?
I've never met him.
Yeah,
I only met him through a phone.
Yeah.
And he comes down. He's like, "Sup, bro?" I'm like, "Oh, we're cool like that." And like we dab each other up, and I'm like, it hit me. I'm like, "Motherfucker, I wouldn't be here if it wasn't for you." I'm like, your video of like, I told my father I didn't want to do this anymore, and like now I'm in your fucking apartment with
Dude.
you.
Wow.
And like and this is why I get so passionate about social, is because I'm like, this is the fucking power it has. That was a few years maybe, but it just shows the power of like one fucking video. It changed this kid's life from like Chicago, and like I'm standing right in front of the man who made that happen. And like people would die to be in front of him.
Yeah.
People pay him $150,000 an hour for a speech.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is fucking cool.
Yeah.
Right?
Dude.
And like that was something for me that I'm like, this is real. And it still doesn't hit me. It still the fact that I'm even recording a podcast on a Monday morning like this, I'm like, this is stupid. Makes no sense. But I am extremely grateful for it. Right?
Wow.
And like again, I worked with Jordan for the next 2 years and like made a shitload of connections and like had the best time of my life. I'm like, I did everything. I like helped with podcasting. I was the guy for everything. I did the video editing, the filming, the thumbnails. Like I did everything. But that set me up for everything that I do now, and
Yeah,
the understanding that I have
had
for
to be
everything.
invaluable,
And
yeah.
I wouldn't trade that.
Yeah.
I would go back and do that for free, right?
Yeah.
And it's cool because then after that, like now I've been able to move on to what I do now, where I do social strategy and consulting for like other 7, 8, 9-figure companies, and like still makes no sense to me. And like even after my time with Jordan, I was still filming and editing, and even just the past 1 to 2 years is when I first started like doing this whole thing for myself and like content, right?
Yeah.
And like late 2022 was when I really put into doing social, and like I went all in on like building my brand and like my audience and my pages and everything. And the amount of doors that has opened alone, just even like going all in on me, I'm like forever grateful for. And
Yeah.
again, that's why it's like leading me right to where I'm at today, where I'm like Monday morning I'm filming a fucking podcast. This is what I get to do. Fucking cool. I wouldn't trade it.
Yeah.
Now, what advice would you give to people who are, and it doesn't matter how old you are, but people who are stuck in a place where they don't want to be doing what they're doing, they want to do something they're passionate about? I know you went through a dark time in your life transitioning. What would you give to people who are wanting to make that transition to make it maybe a little easier for them? And do you really suggest it?
I don't ever say anything is going to be easy. I think there's a lot of choices you can make that make things more simple, right? Like even within what I teach right now, I'm like building your social, building your audience, like none of it's easy, but I can give you tips and things to make it more simple for you. But to be clear, like I would never want anything to be easier. Like, but I'm also not saying it should be hard. But what I am saying is that like maybe you do need to go through a period of like it sucks, and like you have no fucking clue what you want to be doing, that's okay. Right? And
Love
like
that.
if you really broaden your timeline of understanding that life is really long, yes, it can feel short, and like certainly as you get older, like I've noticed, I'm like, wow, it's already Wednesday, Thursday. I'm like, wow, these days go by fast. But when you really can broaden your scope and understand that like, where do I want to be in 10 years from now? And like 10 years is a long time away, right? So it's almost like this, like what Gary talks about, where it's like patience in the macro, like the grand scheme of things, but like day to day, there's like speed within whatever that is, right? And so the way I look at that is like, I have no idea where you're at in life or what you want to be doing, but I think there's also beauty in that where it's just like, you need to sit with yourself. There needs to be a lot of silence, and there needs to be a lot of moments where like you are in your head, just kind of figuring it out. And like I think a lot of people like to get distracted because we have Reels, we have TikTok that we could just numb our fucking thoughts with it, right? We have ChatGPT that can just figure out our fucking life for us, and AI and all this stuff. And I'm like, just sit with what you want. Like, there's so much noise out there, and I think it's a beautiful thing because I've had to spend countless hours where I've just sat myself by the lake in Chicago, and I'm like, what do I really want? And like none of that's been on camera. Like, there's been so many times where I'm like, I would rather just jump in this fucking water and no one finds my body. Right? Because it's like, I just hate the pain I'm in right now. And like, I know a lot of people feel that. Because like, you just almost want to disappear. Yeah. Right? Because it's like, because it almost feels like, fuck, I'm 32, I'm 48, I'm whatever, I'm however old, I'm like, I'm kind of finished. Or like, you're telling me I got to like restart something now, or I got to build something new. And it's like, that's fearful. Maybe you have a kid or two, maybe you're married, maybe there's like a lot of pressure on you. And like, I get it. But it's like, what's the alternative? Like, continue living in the life that you hate?
Miserable, yeah.
Yeah, like be miserable. And it's like
choosing your hard.
Right, exactly. And I always say this too, like I'm so grateful for the relationship I have with my girlfriend, because like she gets it, and like we get each other. Like she has her and her sister built a phenomenal business to $2 million. Like, they're fucking crushing it. I'm proud of them. And it's cool because it's like, if shit were to change, it's just a conversation. And like, that might be a long conversation, but like, a lot of people are afraid to have that with their significant other or whatever that is. And like, they have resentment. And I always look at, I'm like, the hardest thing I ever had to do was face my father. Everything else now, easy. Yeah. Like you said, it's simple. A lot of it comes down to communication, and especially the dialogue that you have in your head.
Totally.
Because a lot of that dialogue is stories that we make up about ourselves, or we make up about other people. And sometimes it's just a simple understanding of like, you might need to have a conversation with someone else. Like, I had a DM conversation with this one guy who, I'm so glad you asked this question, because he was like, hey man, like, I really want to go all in on like social and everything, but he was from England, so he was like, but the missus is going to be a bit unhappy, and he, because they got a house and everything. And I'm like, why are you asking me this? Go talk to your wife. I'm like, do you want me to talk to her for you? I'm like, I can't. I'm like, what's the alternative, man? I'm like, you're unhappy with where your life is right now, right? I'm like, what if you just told her, hey, we can't afford this right now, we need to downsize, but it's because I want to spend the next 3 to 5 years to make sure that we're set up for the next 30 to 50.
Yeah.
Are you willing to have that trade-off? Most people are not. That's why most people do not succeed. It's because they do not expand their timeline, because they look at fucking social on Instagram and TikTok as like quick dopamine. It's all short, it's all quick, it's all right now. And they don't think about the next 10, 20, 30 years. And I'm like, that's a long time. But in their mind, like, I need to get this done in the next 2 days. Like, I need to have all this shit figured out in the next 2 to 3 days, because AI's here and all this shit. It's like, it's all this like cheap fucking dopamine that I'm just like, you are so clouded by, and you don't even know what the hell you want in the next 20 to 30 years. And so I think just, it's understanding, like, it's all just a communication. It's all just an internal dialogue of like, what do you want? And making sure that like everything you're currently doing right now maps and leads to that version of the person you're trying to become.
Wow. Yeah, totally. Yeah,
that is so powerful.
And I think too, if you look at anybody that's like in the top of their field, or even close to the top of their field, like, they all played the long game of spending a year being a videographer, or 6 years just figuring it out, or whatever it is. And it's like, to get that good at something, like, it doesn't happen overnight. So yeah, I think you got to be prepared with yourself to be able to like, and first of all, have the vision to see like what it can turn into, but also to be able to put in the time and the work over however long it takes to where you get to what you're looking for. And then the payoff is way better, because then you're not living your miserable life. It's like, it's like choose your heart. It's like, you can either stay in your life and doing something you don't like, or you can work really hard for the next 3 to 5 years and build a life doing something that you actually enjoy doing, and that's more sustainable long term.
Mm-hmm. I always say, either do something that you're really passionate about, or have a job that pays for you to be able to do something that you're really passionate about. And I feel like either is okay, but it's really, really nice when you get to do something you're really passionate about for work, because of how much time you spend doing it. It's a long time in your life.
Mm-hmm. And what's cool is, I'm like, I would still do what I'm doing for free, because I fucking love it.
Yeah.
Because it's quite little. I would not be here if it wasn't for that. And most people, I just know, I'm like, I look at so many people that like look like me, that give out social media advice and whatever. I'm like, I will win. I will win. This is not to say that like I'm going to crush you, but I know that like I will be in this for the long game. I know that you're capitalizing on a lot of people being vulnerable with social and like you want to help them and like you're a guru or whatever. But I'm like, my why behind all this shit is so much fucking deeper than yours.
Yeah.
And I'm like, the fact that I would do this shit for free, I'm like, that puts me at an untouchable status.
Totally.
And that puts me at a place where I'm like, again, I know so many people that they just pretend like they actually care. And I know so many entrepreneurs and these business people. And I'm like, I see right through you. And the people that really care about this shit, I'm like, you would do it for free if you really cared about it that much. You know why? Because I did it for free for so many years that like, even if I had to go back to that, I gladly would accept it.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's similar to like other tattooers.
Yeah.
When I talk to other tattooers and I say, you know, people who are wanting to jump to a whole different style or something like that, I say, first give out projects for free to build up your portfolio, and then eventually you'll get there. I had to do that for so many years. I was an apprentice for 5 years. I worked for free for 5 years and then did free tattoos after that in order to just build a portfolio so people can see me and ask for projects I want to do. So it's really relatable to like, I think any form of work and art, what you went through. Yeah, I really want to jump into like the social media aspect too, because tattooers, they right now the big argument is I'm a tattooer, I don't do reels, I don't do social media. There's a lot of people who are really bitter about kind of like where this is going. And yes, we're here for the art of it, but this is where it's heading. And I'd love to hear your perspective from someone who is really passionate about it. And that's why I think your story is so important for people to hear, that it's not just surface level like content. It's, you are really passionate about this because it can change people's lives. And I think tattooers need to see that and see like how this can genuinely help other people. This isn't just like, oh, flash your pieces on social media, get a lot of content. Like what people can produce on social media can change people's lives. Mm-hmm. And that's so important. So what do you feel, do you have any advice for tattooers who are wanting to produce good tattoos or good reels? How does it become successful for them? Are there hooks? Like, what are some tips that you have for that?
I'm going to look them directly into the camera and I would say, why the fuck you? Because there's other artists, there's other people that do tattoos. Why are you so special? Why are you the answer? What makes your knowledge of tattooing or your artistic value of tattooing or your why behind everything different than everyone else? Why should I pay any mind to you? And I think a lot of people, they do not have that. They don't. They have no purpose behind anything. I think they're bitter behind reels. They're bitter behind anything because, like, you have literally no intention behind all of it. Like, I have another tattoo, Purpose. Side note, Justin Bieber, favorite artist of all time, favorite album of all time, and my favorite song of all time, Purpose by him. Everything you do needs to be with purpose. Why are you doing what you're doing? Why do you tattoo? Why does that matter to you? Right? You did it for 5 years. Why? Why didn't you give up after 3? Is it because the way that you express yourself through art, like that's an outlet for you and you love other people being able to have a piece on their body that gets to stay with them for life, that then gets to be an identity part of them? Like, that's a deeper why behind just getting some ink on you.
Yes.
Right?
Totally.
And it's like, I don't think a lot of tattoo artists, I'm not saying they don't care, but I just like, I don't see any direction where I'm like, why are you the answer? Like, why should someone fly out to Dallas, Texas to come tattoo here, to come get artwork here?
Yeah.
Right? And it's like stuff like this where it's a podcast and everything, like they get to see you, they get to hear you more, but like they get to build more of a connection with you. And I think especially in the world of the visual arts in which tattooing is, there's a lot of, okay, this is cool how it looks like before and after, yada yada, but like we don't really get to know the artist. Like there's no reason as to why I want to come be with you. I think one of the people that I know of, and I only know her just by name, is like Kat Von D.
Kat Von D, yeah.
I don't even know what, I know of her name, I've heard of her. But that just goes to show she's the only person that I know of besides you guys.
Yeah.
Otherwise, I don't know anyone else.
Yeah.
Like you mentioned that one lady to me before we started. I'm like, I have no idea who that is.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But it's like, it's stuff like that where why would someone go fly out to go get tattooed by her? right?
Yeah.
And like maybe you know about her story a little bit. Maybe you know her reasoning behind certain things. And I think a lot of artists, if they could start to build a why behind why they're doing certain things and being able to build a connection with their current audience, or maybe they have none at all, but understanding like there's parts of you that other people would relate to and that they would connect to, and they'd be like, you're the person I want to go to forever,
Yeah.
right? Like I have former clients of mine who they travel to Kentucky to get tattooed by this one guy. And again, but it's like they travel, like he's their only guy that they will ever go to.
Yeah.
And it's interesting. I haven't asked why, but I'd be curious as to know. I'm like, why do you just go to him? What about him? Like,
Yeah.
yes, it's probably the quality of work, but like, let's be clear. You guys probably have 6-7 hour conversations in the chair. Like,
Yeah.
you are spending that much more time with them now. You are like you're spending a full work day with them.
Yeah.
Like, you are building a connection with them.
Totally.
And I look at that as I'm like, what if someone were to literally start, I don't know, maybe you guys do this, like if you literally did a hot seat podcast where like you mic up the client and like you mic yourself up and like you guys just have a podcast episode or you guys just like do a YouTube video, but like there's conversations there that like now people can get to know you a little bit more, get to know the client, like if they're okay with it, right? But like it's just stuff that allows people to be let in a little bit more, but there's more intention behind it.
Yeah.
Right? It goes more beyond like the before and after of just the art, because like, yeah, that's cool, but like, I don't know, I'd love to hear about like your childhood. I'd love to hear a little bit more about you and like other things and like why you're so passionate about tattooing. Like, why are you using a needle with like, I don't know, like a thing with like 3 needles versus 5 or whatever. And like maybe you educate the client on it.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And like stuff like that is fun.
Yeah.
Stuff like that like opens the door now, because it's like, wow, you have now then given me a rite of passage to be like, I trust you.
Totally.
Right. Especially because most of the time, tattooers, like, they become tattooers not because they had a great childhood, they went to college, they had a lot of money. Like, I feel like artists in general, there's sort of some pain behind there. And to be able to share that and make people feel less alone, I think that is one of the most important things ever. It's just why, like, this podcast, I like to dive into more of, like, the past and everything to be more vulnerable, because I know how important it is, social media, where you look at it, you see someone more vulnerable and you relate to them and you feel less alone. Mm-hmm. That is a purpose. I think that is a purpose. If more tattooers did that, I mean, that's great advice, even like for me, because I know like for us, we post a lot of like work and stuff, but to really like talk about and produce content that not only helps you, but helps the world. Why isn't more people doing that?
Yeah. Well, and I think there's like been so much talk about how like the tattoo industry is like becoming saturated now, and like it's the bar for entry is kind of like lower than ever. And so there are like a bunch of artists that can slay a black and gray realism portrait or like do like great tattoos. And so it's something that it's been a topic of the podcast a lot. If you connect with an artist on a personal level, even if their art it might not be as good as this other artist, but if you have a connection with them and you want to get tattooed by them, that's who you're going to go to, and that's who you're going to continue going to. And it's almost the same with social media content coaches, because there are a million of you guys out there, or whatever, however you want to label yourself, you know, but like, I like your stuff because like I can see your personality with it and I can see your passion behind it, and that's something that separates you from everybody else, even giving similar tips, you know?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And even one thing that I was just thinking about too, where I'm like, I know even when I went into, like, I think I got, like this one, it had a little bit more detail with it. But even just like being, and I talk about this like lately where I'm like, I think social's changing where people want to see more of like the behind the scenes, like your process with things. I would love to see client comes in the door to the shop or whatever, and they're like, this is the idea I have. What then goes in your mind to sketching that?
Yeah.
And how many sketches do you go through?
Yeah.
And like, I'd love to hear your thought process on like, why is the flower this way? Why are you doing shading around it here? Why are you attaching a diamond to it here? Like, and again, you're putting their concept into practice, but now again, it's that level of trust where it's just like, oh, I can trust you now for whatever it is that I want. And like the way that your brain works and the way that like you see that, like see certain things, like I gravitate towards that. And I would love to understand like, okay, literally from the time that they come in the door with concept in their mind to the time that they walk out with the most beautiful fucking piece on their, wherever it is their body.
Yeah.
That's something that's cool. And
Yeah.
that's something that like I have not seen done yet, where I would love to see like, again, They come in, there's a whole process with it, and like maybe you brief them like, hey, I'm filming like a whole behind the scenes with this, like I'd love for you to be a part of it, and like you interview them, what's your name, yada yada, like what are you hoping to get, like all this, like you do a whole consultation, this is what it's going to cost, this is how many sessions it's going to be, and like now we get to be with them throughout the whole journey. We get to see like, I don't know, clips of during the sessions and every time, and like the build out and all of that, and I feel like stuff like that is so powerful, and like that's so cool.
And that answers the next question, because I was going to ask you, from somebody who is not directly in the tattoo industry, things that you would want to see more of, and what questions you may have for tattooers that you would gravitate towards on social media. So is there any other ideas, just kind of off the top of your head? I'm just curious if you kind of like on the spot can think of anything else.
I know we chatted about before, like the level of education in the tattoo space. I look at every industry, and you had mentioned it being saturated. I don't think anything's ever too saturated.
No, I agree. Yeah.
Because I think there's people that would blow up that are like this one guy, Sam Selleck, who on YouTube, like he's blown up in the fitness space, and like mind you, he's jacked, he's 21, he's obviously on gear, but he looks the part, and like you would have thought someone who's in the YouTube space in fitness, like probably shouldn't be doing that. He's blown up to 2 million subscribers in under a year. And he posts 40, 50, 60-minute long videos with no editing, no nothing. Completely going against the grain of everything. But it's working, right? It's because the way in which the audience receives it is completely different. And so I look at, especially within the tattoo world, like I said, it's a more of a visual art. You know, I think there's a lot of like trending audios and reels that people use of like, you know, the behind the scenes of everything and how it looks. Not even behind the scenes, but like the final product and all that. And I don't personally think, at least not the people that I follow, I just don't think there's a good enough job of educating, like you had said, the tattoo artist, but also the consumer looking to get a tattoo, which helps both parties. Because if you can help someone understand and educate them who's brand new to wanting to get a tattoo, well, now you also help the artist in being able to communicate to their potential clients on easing the, I don't know, maybe it's their first tattoo or whatever that is, right? And so even just there's so many ideas with things. I think ideas are shit if it's not executed on properly within the creative. Right? Totally. Because I think a lot of people have really great ideas, but I'm like, the way in which it's packaged and presented to the audience, that's what matters the most. And I think from an ideation perspective, I'm like, I would love even just, I mean, I'm assuming there's a lot of content out right now, but just like a lot more education on like, well, what can you expect for your first tattoo? Like, what is, like, if you are getting your first tattoo, like, should you start with something small or should you start with something big? Like, what are the most painful parts on your body to get a tattoo? And like, is there a progression where it's like, if you get one tattoo, how long should you have to wait to get your next one? Like, can you get ink poisoning? I don't know. Like, I remember when I got these, like, I nearly almost fainted after he started, and I'm like, oh, it's because I didn't eat anything beforehand. You had to give me a lollipop, and I'm like, okay, so education on like what to eat before you get a tattoo. Like, is it safe to not eat before getting a tattoo? Like, should you be hydrated before getting, like, all these different things that like we don't think about, that you guys probably, like, it's common sense. You're like, yeah, no shit, you should be doing this, but I didn't know that. Like, he literally had to give me a lollipop, and then I realized, I'm like, oh, my blood sugar just dropped. It was, I literally told him, I'm like, you need to stop. I'm like, I'm not being a baby. I literally feel like I'm gonna pass out right now. And he's like, okay, cool, lollipop.
He's like, he knew.
But he knew the solution. He knew what my problem was. He knew the solution right away. Why is that the solution though? Right? And it's like, well, maybe could we then educate beforehand on, like, you know, the 7 things you need to do before you even walk into the tattoo shop. That, like, it's like a tattoo checklist. Right? Like, before you even go in getting your tattoo, you need to make sure you have XYZ. Like, maybe bring your earphones. Make sure, like, if you're sensitive to sound or the pain, like, maybe bring this. Make sure you eat something. Make sure you drink something. Like, preferably no caffeine. I don't know if that's a thing. Like, there's just so many things that I find interesting and that I would ask, and that I look at it of like, okay, if I'm the consumer, psychologically, these are little things that are sticky. And like, there's a really good book by Dan and Chip Heath. It's like, it's called Made to Stick. And there's little things that a lot of experts in their own field overlook because they're like, oh, well, people should know this stuff. Well, people don't know. But if there's a little thing that you can take away, or that someone can take away, they will remember that for life.
Totally.
And even like what I said, we're eating before getting a tattoo. I will never forget that. If that's something that I watch and I consume that, and you tell me exactly what I need to eat, like nutrition-wise, I will never forget that for the rest of my life because that is something that I have never heard.
Yeah. And you'll feel more prepared
Correct.
to get a tattoo. Yeah.
Wow. Now, if somebody were to make a video kind of explaining all of this, for example, how would you suggest starting out the video to hook somebody in?
It's a great question.
Like if we're talking about like the things you need to do before you get a tattoo, and I wanted to make a video about that.
There's multiple ways to go about it. I always look at of number one, you could look at it of what's this costing you, and number two of what can this do for you. It's the negative or the positive positioning. And obviously more negative marketing gets more clicks. We obviously see it within news cycles, within articles, like people tend to be more fear driven. It's just society. People are just like, I need to figure out what this is because they're more scared of things. And so again, the answer is always it depends. Now, if you want to have people feel more comfortable with things, then you could take more of a positive route. If you want people to be more aware of like, hey, like don't fucking do this, like then you take a fear route, right? Where it's like if we're thinking of a hook and something that I even would look at of like, you know, like if you're thinking about getting your first tattoo, do not do that. Like, trying to think of it on the spot. Like if you're thinking about getting your first tattoo, do not make this mistake that 99% of people make.
Yeah.
Or whatever. Because now, like what that also does psychologically is people don't want to feel like they're being like other people. They don't want to feel like they're part of the 99%. They want to feel like they have that little edge.
Yeah.
So it's like, okay, well, the 1% do this, whatever that is. Now it opens a curiosity gap and a loop of like, well, what is this thing that I need to be doing? Because people innately, they want to be getting better. They want to be able to be doing better. You know, or you could take a more positive route where it's like, you know, if you're thinking about getting your first tattoo, make sure you do, like, you must do these 3 things or insert whatever, like insert whatever word, right? And now you run through a checklist of it. But I think also too, psychologically, I feel like social's changing because I think a lot of people are being able to, like, are not that they're seeing through, but the whole, like, you know, here's 3 things, here's 5 things, here's 7 things. I think that still works and that still has place, but I think a lot of people are not getting exhausted of it.
I think what people are getting exhausted of, or me personally, is when like they do that but don't put any effort into the video, where it's like a 5-second reel and it's just trending audio and it's like read the caption and it's like that worked for a while, I feel like, but now I feel like it's like a thing and people are like, oh shit, like this again, you know? And that's one thing that I really like that you don't do. And when I've started to do educational stuff, like I try to steer away from that because I actually want to give people value of like watching the video and not just doing something gimmicky, because I also feel like people can see that through that too, you know?
Well, I even asked, it's funny, I made a post on IG, but then I also like, I rip into people that like, it's lazy content. I'm like, it's lazy. You are not a leader, you are lazy. And when you do those like 6-second audios that says, read the caption, fuck you.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, but actually, no, I'm not sorry because I have no tolerance for lazy content. And people then wonder, well, why am I not growing? Because you look like everyone else.
Yeah.
And I guarantee you, if we had to poll random audiences, would you rather watch this video or would you rather watch this video that says yada, 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 read the caption? And it's like, okay, I see what you're trying to do.
Well, it's not even like they're watching the video. Like it just works for the algorithm because like, you know, the video repeats and it's getting watch time and plays and stuff. And maybe, and let's say for the benefit of the doubt, like let's say the caption does add value, but it's still, I feel like, not as much value as if you actually consumed a video with good information and that somebody put a lot of effort into making, you know?
And that's the problem is like most people that post these like 6-second videos that's like, oh, check the caption below or like details in the caption, you don't actually deliver. And so the payoff for the audience is not there. Why would they consume another piece of content from you?
Totally.
Versus even the way I do it, the way other people do it, or something that I'm more gravitated towards is like, I'd rather you hook me into the video, but don't make it feel like I'm being baited, like clickbait, and then you don't deliver what you said you're going to deliver on. Like, make it feel seamless, but at least I want to learn something. I want to be able to walk away from the video that like, oh, I didn't know that, or I can go apply this. That's something brand new I can test in my life. That's a new thought that I had. That's a new perspective that I now see. I now have like new inspiration or aspiration for things. But there's just so many routes that I think a lot of people can take with things. And it's like, you know, again, if you're going to do that 6-second, like, you know, read the caption type thing, like you got to deliver. But I think most people fail to deliver.
Totally. And I feel like that's what makes the difference too with like people like actually following you and going to your page. Like when they see a high quality video and they get something out of it, because I feel like it's going viral is great. But like really what you're looking to is like it's like a funnel. Like you want it to funnel down to your business, and generally you want people to end up following you. And so if you're just doing something that's getting a lot of views, that's great. But if you're not providing people with actual good content that they want to consume more of, they're not going to do that. So they're not going to go to your page. They're not going to check out the rest of your shit. They're not going to follow you.
I always say this, people are innately curious. It's great to go viral for the right reasons. I think most people try to go viral because it, and I say this, people like to go viral because it soothes a level of attention that they're not getting in their life. And so that's, like I said, a cheap dopamine for them. But again, it's like, you're not going viral for the right reasons. And I think if you do go viral for the right reason, that's fine. So long as though when people come to your page, you are the answer for them.
Yeah.
Because people have a BS meter in their head. They're like, okay, you haven't posted in 27 days. Why would I follow you? Like, let's just be honest. Most people don't have a level of consistency in their life with anything that they do.
Yeah.
And they want to be able to see, oh, someone else is being consistent for me in a sense where it's like, I can get my information from them, but like they're present, they're here. And whatever that is, whether that's like fitness or, like I said, working out or social or whatever that is, like people want to be able to see like, are you consistently here? And not just that, but like, can you consistently help me? And a lot of people, like you had said, going viral, it's fine. I think it's cool when it happens to me, but I'm like, I know when people come to my page that they're going to look at everything else and be like, he's worth a follow. I earned a follow from you. And that's a really key thing. You earn people's attention. You do not hack it. You do not get people's attention.
Yes, yeah.
You earn it. Because let me make it abundantly clear. Everyone else in this world can go spend their time doing whatever else that it is. The fact that they spend 30 seconds with you of their life is fucking phenomenal. And like most people don't have that level of appreciation. That's why I love this whole social thing. Because I'm like, again, we could be doing anything with our life. I could be sitting in the sun right next to that Volvo if I wanted to, just to get some sunlight on me. But like the fact that I'm here recording a podcast, or the fact that I'm like watching a reel, it's time. It is time that is all finite.
Yeah.
And like the fact that someone spends that with you, any second of that, like it is valuable.
Yeah. Yeah, totally. And I love what you said about it's not hacking, it's earning. Because I was thinking about this, the whole Instagram algorithm thing yesterday, and I feel like people are like, oh, I can't figure out the algorithm, or the algorithm hates me. And I'm like, dude, like it's really like not rocket science. Like Instagram wants to keep people on their platform. So if you make videos that people want to watch or posts that people want to engage with, then it's going to do better, because Instagram is getting people to stay on their platform. And so I feel like people get, and I feel like you even did a video too, where it's like, it's not the algorithm. It's like, it's psychology, right? You're just keeping people engaged, especially when there are so many videos, so many content creators out there, so many tattoo artists. They can spend their time looking at anybody else's stuff. And that's why you have to earn their attention at the beginning of the video. You have to earn their attention throughout the beginning of the video. You got to earn that follow. And so I feel like people get caught up in like, oh, I'm not doing the right things for the algorithm. And it's like, no, like you're just not making content that people want to watch and engage with. Because if you do that, guess what? Your stuff's going to get shown more often. It's literally in Instagram's best interest to do that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. So what is, I just want to see if there's like a clear, almost formula for somebody who is really passionate. Let's just say tattooing. They're really passionate about tattooing. They want to give people right information. They want to go the route of not fear, but let's just say like of just being really helpful. What do they have to do from start to finish to make a video that is successful?
Great question. To the point where I brought up about the whole lollipop thing when I got a tattoo, he knew the solution right there, but he also knew what my problem was. A lot of people have no idea what problems they're even solving or what solutions that they're trying to provide for people. And the other thing with that too is getting clear on like, well, who are you talking to? Like you articulated to me that you have two audiences that you're talking to, the tattoo artist, but then also someone who is more on the consumer side. A lot of people, they have no idea who they're talking to, right? Like if you're talking to me, like I'm thinking about getting a half sleeve, but like that's because I'm in a position where I want to get one, right?
Yeah.
Well, someone else who is a 45-year-old who has, like actually my dad's been talking about getting a tattoo for 10 years on his back. And like, I'm like, okay, I'll believe it when I see it. But he's the type that's like, he wants to. But I look at that as I'm like, what is his hesitation? Is it because there's an unknown for him of like, what is this going to feel like? How much time is involved with me getting this? What is the pain level with this? How is this going to look now?
Am I going to regret it?
Am I going to regret it? Like, there's all these questions that when I say of like, why are you the answer? I'm like, well, can you allow my father to then get a tattoo? Can you break every single belief he has on getting a tattoo and then get him to take action on it? Because that's powerful.
Yeah.
Right? Like getting people to break every single belief that they have on things, or like any predispositions that they have on it, or whatever fears that they have. Like, can you not break them down, but can you break all of those so then they come to a conclusion on their own?
Yeah.
Right? And that's something that most people can't help with or can't articulate.
Yeah.
Right? And that's something where I'm like, well, you need to get really clear on, well, who are you trying to talk to? Because someone that's brand new getting a tattoo, completely different than someone like me who's got 5, where I'm like, I kind of know the pain a little bit. I'm like, it's okay. Like, let me be clear, like these all took 10, 15 minutes to get done.
Well, and then it's completely different from somebody who like is a tattoo collector and has like hours and hours of work on their body. You know, there's a lot of audiences like within that audience, you know?
And again, are you talking to someone who has $5K to spend on a sleeve, or someone who's got maybe $50 and they want to get their first hat? Completely different.
Totally.
Right? Someone who's in Highland Park or Preston Hollow or downtown Dallas, like completely different audiences. But I think it's just understanding like, well, who is this demographic that I want to serve? Like, who are these people?
Yeah.
And like someone that really appreciates like the artwork behind it, someone who maybe they lost someone in their life that they want to be able to commemorate them on like, a side like here. Like there's so many different things, and again, like the answer is like it depends with all of it, but a lot of it needs to be clear on like, who are we actually trying to talk to? Like, what are you trying to solve for? And like, what's your solution?
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
And like that is, it's not even a formula, but like that's like a backbone to every single thing. And a lot of people, even people that I work with, I'm just like, that's the first stuff we need to figure out. Because they're like, well, what do I need to post tomorrow? I'm like, I don't care what we need to post tomorrow. I'm like, do you have answers for all of this for me?
Yeah.
And like, and I know maybe tattooing it might be a little bit different, but it should be that clear where like you live in someone's home, like you know them that well, right? To where like, my father thinks about getting a tattoo maybe once every 6 months, and like he gets really hyped about it, and then it fades.
Yeah.
How do you then get him to where he understands of like, okay, now it's going to start to go in my mind every 3 months, and then now every month, and then eventually I'm just going to be like, okay, I want to go do it.
Yeah.
Right? How do you then understand psychologically what he's going through? And maybe he's been sitting on it for the past 20 years to then now take action.
Totally.
Right? Or someone like me who only has lettering to now getting more artwork done.
Yeah.
Right? I am a little bit hesitant about getting a half sleeve. I want to get a half sleeve with like a shark on it and whatever. I am hesitant because I'm like, how much time is this going to cost me?
Yeah.
Because I'm like, do I need to carve out 8 hours on a Wednesday?
Sure.
And again, if you're talking to other entrepreneurs, like their time is valuable.
Totally.
That's a lot of time.
Totally.
So it's like, how do you then convince them of like, okay, well, yes, it's going to take this amount of time, yada, yada, but maybe we could break it up into X amount of sessions so it feels less overwhelming now. And now it's more tangible.
Yeah.
Because they look at that as like an 8 hour day. They're like, well, I have to be away from work and everything. Like, I can't do that, especially if I need my arm to type or text, whatever. Like,
yeah.
So it's like little things like that where, that's a completely different demographic versus a 20-year-old kid who's in college. Like, yeah, I'll just, I got 10 hours to get a leg sleeve done.
Totally.
Right?
Yeah.
Or, what's actually really cool? I would love to see breakdowns of like other people's tattoos. Like Lionel Messi's like half sleeve on his leg. I would love to learn like, how much did that cost?
Yeah.
What went into that? Like,
Yeah.
can you break that down for me?
Totally,
Like
yeah.
Justin Bieber's tattoos. Like he talks about that. And he's actually, I think with like GQ, he's broken down like, oh, this tattoo, this is what it means here. And like doing a breakdown of other people that you know and that you see, like what went into their tattoos.
Yeah.
And like how much pain do you think that happened? Like I know Justin's got like an X here, but like there's other things that I'm like, ooh, like how do I get that cloud shading? Like what is that?
Yeah.
Like I don't know what that's called, but other people might have questions on it because they see it.
Yeah.
Right. And it's
Totally.
like, what goes into that? Like LeBron's got so many tattoos. Like there's so many things that you can leverage other people's celebrities with that. I just think stuff like that's cool.
Yeah.
I think,
totally.
and familiarizing people with the process. It's like people who have social anxiety and they want to like check out a restaurant and know the layout before actually going on a date there or something. It's like, it would probably be really helpful for someone to know the entire process of how a tattoo like that works or how to get a sleeve and stuff like that, so they feel more comfortable going into it. So that's brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So if you are a tattooer, those three very important things. Can we break down the three things again? You said there needs to be a problem solved.
So the what?
So the what, right?
The who?
Who?
Like who are we talking to, and then why? So there's it's three W's, but then the why also attached to like, well, yes, like why are you the solution,
right?
But then what is the solution, right? And so again, it's who you're talking to, like what are we actually trying to solve for, and then why behind all of it, like why is that the solution for it, and then why are you the answer?
Yeah.
Wonderful.
Yeah, that's great. And we do you follow JPG Coaching on TikTok and Instagram?
Why does that sound familiar?
He's getting pretty big, but he's like a little bit newer in the fitness space. But he's got like 4 million followers on TikTok.
Oh,
but
you had him on the podcast.
Yeah, we
cool.
just did a podcast with him, and so one of the things that he was talking about is like it's super important to know your audience because you can get caught up in trying to make videos to impress people in your field, and it's not actually like who you're supposed to be talking to. And so like we were talking earlier before the show of like, you know, we've got different audiences, right? We've got people that want tattoos, and we've got tattoo artists that we're talking to. And obviously, like, the people that are interested in getting tattoos, like, that audience is, like, way bigger, broad strokes. But then also you can, like, narrow it down a little bit. And I think a lot of tattoo artists, like, they don't think about, like, they don't have, like, purpose behind their content. Or they might have, like, good intentions. Or, like, oh, shit, I need to be making more reels. I need to hire a videographer. But the reality is that like just having a videographer come in and film you doing a tattoo, and I've talked about this a ton on the show, but like watching a tattoo is it's not entertaining, dude. Like maybe other tattoo artists want to know about your process, but you can only like show like dipping in ink caps so much, or slow motion shots of the person's face. So that's great to have nice videos and everything, and maybe that people think that that's the solution to do better, but I feel like the solution is to be purposeful with your content. And what I try to do when I make videos is I try to be very intentional, and I talk about this in my seminars. Be intentional, but I could be doing a way better job, and you've opened my eyes to a lot of stuff already today. But be intentional with even how you're editing the video, who this video is for, who's going to be watching it, how are you going to get views on this video, how are you going to get people to watch to the end. And I think that's something that a lot of people, tattoo artists or otherwise, just don't think through. And I think that's why even if they spend a lot of money on, okay, I'm going to get in a videographer, I'm going to make a really nice looking video, that's why sometimes it doesn't hit the way it does, and it's because they're not being intentional or purposeful about the whole thing.
I want to know right now too, for tattooers who maybe aren't comfortable coming onto camera and talking to the camera and be like, here's three things. Tattooers who just want to show their work. You say, oh, don't do a slow motion of their face for too long, or don't just show like dipping into ink caps. If they don't want to show their face and talk to the camera, and they want to show the work that they're passionate about, how would that go then?
What I said before, like, tell the story behind it. Like, you can do visual storytelling without needing to speak on camera or do anything, right? Like what I had mentioned, where like the client comes in through the door, and like maybe we show like B-roll of them walking in, like you guys talking about certain things, and like on screen it shows like you almost talk about your process. Like maybe you have a 7-step process for tattooing, and like step 1, like consultation with a client. Step 2 is like maybe they bring in photos of things that they want, and like you kind of like overlook things, like that way it draws inspiration for you. Step 3, like you go to sketching it, and like we get to see all this behind the scenes, right? Step 4 goes into I don't know what's that called, where like you actually have the
stencil,
but then what's the stuff beforehand? So it's like the guide.
The stencil.
Yeah. So like developing that, and like maybe the client's like, oh, not what I had in mind. So now you got to go back to the drawing board, right? Well, what does that look like? Maybe they come in for another revision, and like how much time has passed so far, and then all the way through to like actually tattooing. Because I think a lot of people, they just showcase, the like I said, like the final products or the dipping of the ink and everything. Yeah, that's cool and all, but like how are you bringing the process? Like everyone wants to be tied to that. Everyone. Like no matter who you are, it's like what goes on behind that, right? Like one of the things that I have not an issue with, but something that I'm working on getting better at is like explaining my process with videos, right? Like, why did you think of this hook, and then why did you think of like this micro hook after, and then how did you tell this story throughout the rest of it? People want to know that, right? Like I had that in-person seminar that I did with those 3 other business owners, and I was breaking down this one guy. His name's Jeff Nippert. One of his videos had like 17, 20 million.
Dude, he's crushing it, dude. I've been
Love
following
him.
him for a long time, but I was checking out his page the other day, and I don't remember when I started following, but he did not have the followers that he does now. And so I was like, I actually made some notes. I was like, dude, this is stuff that we should try because like he's crushing it. But anyway, go on. Yeah.
I was breaking down a video that came across my feed, and I broke it down to them of like why this did so well. And it's interesting because I have the clip, and they're like, that's so simple. I'm like, I know it is. It's just you don't see it because once you actually can break it down and like once you understand the process behind all of it, like me explaining kind of how like videos work and like how I see things psychologically, then it's like, oh, it's not as complex as I make it to
Totally.
be, right? And so stuff like that where we as a society, we as human beings, we make things way more complex than what it needs to be. The thought of like for me, probably one of the reasons why I haven't gotten tattoos because I'm like, no one's gonna get the vision that I have in my head for it. I'm like, I have a vision of like, I want the fucking shark jaws to be out of my elbow here. I'm like, no one's gonna get that right. But like, what is the process behind that?
Yeah.
Maybe that needs to go through a lot of revisions. Maybe I need to go find other inspiration and bring it to the artist, and like maybe they pull some other things.
Yeah.
But showing all that, I think, is what's it's a blue ocean with that. Like, there's so much opportunity for that, right? And like, even in my head right now, I look at like a YouTube video of like a before and after, and like the video is like 20 something minutes long, but it almost has nothing to do with like the actual tattooing and everything to do with how did we get to that final product, and like maybe
Yeah.
a conversation with the client, maybe there's an interview, like a little bit of like they're a little bit worried, like, oh, $2,500 for the tattoo, like, oh shoot, okay, cool, well, like, you know, all of that process behind it
Yeah.
to then show people like this is what goes into it that
Yeah.
you don't see.
Yeah, totally. Yeah, and I feel like and that obviously that kind of editing takes a lot of time and resources too. But I feel like, you know, that it's not like that's something that you have to do every time. Just anything you can do, I feel like, to give people like a glimpse at something else other than just the final product of the tattoo. Whether that's like even like writing a long caption about how we went through this tattoo process or what the tattoo means or whatever it is, I think can help get people that deeper understanding without having to spend an entire day editing a video.
And how did you learn how to use the tools to edit these videos? And for somebody who's trying to figure this out on their own, is there any good resources, any good YouTube videos, that's any good people to follow even besides yourself?
I mean, my answer is YouTube University.
Yeah.
Because like,
Yeah.
I've been all self-taught with everything, and I think that's a beautiful thing because like I haven't had to rely on anyone with that. But there's also a hindrance where it's like, sure, you could pay someone to learn things faster, but I think it comes down to like, well, what do you want, right? Because you even said like having a videographer editor, that's great and all, but like if they can't tell a proper story, or like if they're not editing the video you want or that you had envisioned, like there's gonna be some friction there, but you're paying for it in time and money there. Versus like you kind of getting your feet wet and editing a little bit, you kind of have an understanding of, okay, this is the guide that I'd want people to follow. Copy this,
Yeah,
right?
totally.
And that's something for me that I always implore other people where they're like, oh, you know, it's funny. My girlfriend and like she this lady who like does hair extensions. She was telling her, she's like, oh, you know, I want to hire a videographer to come in and film reels. And I'm like, for what? Like, what's the goal, right? She's like, well, I just want to put out more content. For what? Well, I want to get more business. Okay, for what? Well, because I want to be able to make more money, and like, okay, got it. So like, there's always a deeper why.
Yeah.
It's always running it through a why test. Why are we doing this? Like, right? Like tattoo artists. I want to put content out on social media. Why? Well, because I want to showcase my work. Why? Because I want to get more clients. Why? Right? Because, well, I want to be able to make more money. Got it. Right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, it's always a why behind things. There's always a deeper why that everyone has, right? It's either health, wealth, or relationships. And when you can get to the bottom of that, then now everything is more purposeful. But going back to what I had said, I always encourage people, like, edit stuff on your own. Like, figure out how you want to tell a story. And like, yeah, you can look at other people as inspiration, but then that way you can give direction to someone else. And like, now when you hire that person on, or whatever that is, that editor, that videographer, it's like, okay, well, I've done it before for myself, so I know how I
Yeah.
want to communicate. Now I can give them direction. Versus you might spend a month or two, and like that's costing you also money on the front end to like figure this stuff out. But on the front end too, for like figuring it out yourself, that might cost time. Right, and I think you just have to understand, well, what resources are you willing to invest in? Your
Yeah.
time or money? And like,
Yeah.
if you don't have the money, you're gonna have to invest the time.
Totally.
You know?
Totally.
Love
And
that.
that's and I talk about tattoo business a lot, and I always talk about like pretty much delegating and automating anything you can, because as a tattoo artist, especially if you're popular, you're tattooing 8 hours a day, so you might not have time to edit a video like that. But I do think it's important to, yeah, if you have the resources, to get somebody else to do it. But I think it's also important to at least know what you're looking for out of that, so you can have a conversation with that, because odds are, like, if you just hire a videographer to come in and shoot some videos, like, their vision is not going to match up with yours, and it could be that they are like, boom, I know how to make the perfect video to go viral and get you 1 million followers or whatever it is. But like, if you're looking for that person, that's a needle in a haystack. So I feel like you need to have the vision. Maybe you'll get lucky and somebody else has it, but I feel like if you have a base understanding of at least what you're looking for, if not just how to do it, I feel like that's really important when you're looking for somebody to help with that.
And not a lot of people, and this is not to discredit anyone, but not a lot of people understand like the social and business aspect. Some videographers are great at making videos, great, but it's like, how does this drive business growth?
Totally.
How does this relate to driving audience growth on social? Yeah, it's one thing to make a badass video, but if it flops, doesn't really matter.
Totally.
Like, no one saw it. Has no purpose behind it. And I think that's one thing where it's like, I had to learn all this on my own, and that's why I'm so grateful where I'm like, I can be a badass behind the camera. Obviously that's not my what I do anymore, or editing. I mean, I still edit and film all my videos. But like, that's just something where a lot of people want to hire these people because it's like, oh, because it looks cool, but they don't really understand how is this helping funnel everything? How is this actually moving the needle forward? It just looks cool, cost me $3,000 a month. I didn't make any of that back, so I don't really know how this all works. And there's really no strategy behind any of it. And that's where I'm saying, again, you could have someone come film the coolest B-roll video, and like, you get the ink drop at like 240 frames a second. That looks sick.
They've got an FX3 or
Right.
a fucking fancy rig like that. Like, it's a gorgeous video, cool transitions, whatever it is. But sometimes it just doesn't hit because, you know, maybe that person or the artist doesn't understand what they're looking for, and they don't understand how that translates to traction on social media, which it's not just about going viral. Like, it is about getting you more clients, more business.
But I would say it all starts with the tattoo artist, because you have no idea why you're even making content.
Yeah.
Or you have no idea the purpose or intention behind each video. And so it's not the videographer's fault. They're doing their job. You just gave them poor direction.
Totally. Yeah. And that's what I was saying. Maybe you'll have a videographer that's like, oh, dude, we should do this and this and this. But I feel like it's hard enough to find somebody who can, you know, put a good video together. But it's like a needle in a haystack looking for that. Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally.
Yeah.
Yeah, and you grow that relationship, because there isn't a actual job title out there that is tattoo videographer.
Yeah.
That is something
Yeah.
that you help create and learn together. You find a great videographer, somebody who's willing to learn, and you kind of show them and teach them like what you're looking for. And then if they're amazing, like, we have incredible content creators here who take it on their own to make ideas and figure it out for us now that they know the vision. For people who can't afford that, though, or who are in a place who are just starting, they're like, I just need to put out good content. I need to know the why. I need to have a purpose. It is good to know that you can figure it out on your own. You can go to YouTube. You can figure out how to edit and what social media platform is best, and to look at videos that you make specifically too. The videos you put out there are so helpful too. The tips you have, there are ways to do it too on your own if you don't have that income yet. You just need to put in that time, like you said.
So you mentioned it a little bit earlier, but I was going to ask, like, how do you feel about, like, and I feel like there's this whole like phenomenon going on where it's like faceless content. Like, how do you feel about that? Or she was saying, you know, if you're a tattoo artist and you don't feel comfortable like showing your face on camera.
I don't think it's, again, I'm not against it, because I think you're at least doing something. The difference between someone who talks and speaks on video, I will buy from them 10 out of 10 times.
Yeah,
Just
totally,
know that.
Totally. And that's, just to share my opinion on it, that's a conversation that I have with every tattoo artist. Like you should show your face. You should have your profile picture should be somebody they want to know, like, who they're connecting with. They don't just want to, and that's why I feel like it's hard for like sometimes like businesses to like resonate with people sometimes, because like it's way easier to connect with a person than it is to connect with a business or just an art page if you're a tattoo artist who never posts anything about you. Because at the end of the day, like social media is about making connections with people, and if you have that connection with somebody, it's like you said, you're going to buy from them 10 out of 10 times. Totally.
And that's one thing that I encourage a lot of other people to look at is I'm like, audit your own feed. Pay attention to the people that you follow. And I would do a really hard deep dive and be like, who are the people that I always look forward to their content, or the people that I implicitly trust without even question?
Yeah.
9 out of 10 times, it's people that have been posting videos, 9 out of their last 12 posts, right?
Yeah.
It's because they're showing up more on camera, they're showing up more on video. You trust them implicitly.
Yeah.
The people that post these like 6-second video, like the faceless videos, I'm like, I don't trust you because I don't know anything about you. I almost feel like you have something to hide.
Yeah.
Right? That way when it's like on video, I'm like, you have nothing to hide. And like, I see you and everything. And I implicitly trust you because I can hear you. I can hear your tone of voice. I can like feel the energy you have or don't have. And like, I connect with you a lot more.
Yeah.
Right? And that's the other thing too, where I'm like, you said before, you're like, choose your hard. It's hard getting on video.
Yeah.
It's also hard having no fucking clients.
Yeah.
Yes.
Totally.
Right?
Totally.
And so I look at that where I'm like, what's harder? The pain of having no clients or the pain of being insecure on video? Because we can fix both.
Yeah.
We can fix being better on camera. It's probably going to suck early on. That's fine. It's just, is that worth it to you? And will you be comfortable with living with the regret of like, I didn't try?
Yeah.
Right?
Totally.
At least you tried.
Totally.
And at least you put in the effort. And here's the thing. I hate the people that are like, well, at least I tried. No. I'm like, you can make it fucking work if you want to. You can. You can get better.
Yeah.
You can stay up till 12, 1 o'clock at night and like looking at other people and like studying like how they do things, how they talk and all this. Like a lot of the reasons why I talk the way I do and like the way that I just speak, it's like this is the energy that I have with everything, but it's because I've spent a lot of time just understanding how communication works and like all this, right? And like, again, I literally could have just started making videos where I'm like, you know, here's 5 ways to do whatever, yada yada, and it's like it's just boring.
Yeah.
Versus I change my inflection, I change my tone, and like I have different pace with things, and like my delivery with it, the way I just communicate, and like that's an art. But it's like I had to learn that, and like you have to learn this by consuming other people. I'm not saying compare, like consuming, because one of the best things that I ever took was when you read a book, you take that person with you in your army. When you consume other people's content with you, like you take bits and pieces to build your identity.
Yeah.
Because you're like, oh, I like the way that they speak. I like the way that they deliver like this. I like the way that they move their hands. I like the way that they gesture, or, you know, their tone in which they deliver on things. So they talk with a high note and then they end with a low.
Yeah.
Right? Like there's certain things that you can build into your identity, but that all comes with understanding like what is out there, how do people communicate, like what actually earns attention, and the psychological component of all of it, of how can I like morph this into how I want to communicate.
Yeah, totally. And one thing that you've been doing more of that I love is when you like break down other people's videos and you're like, here's how this works, because I feel like that's one thing that I try to catch myself doing when I see a video that performs super well or a video that I swipe out of. I try to catch myself and be like, okay, what just happened right there? Why did I swipe out of this? And it's tough to like train yourself to do that and look at stuff with the critical eye. So that's one thing I really like about this series that you've been doing, where you're like, you know, steal the Philadelphia Eagles content strategy. And you're like, this is why this works so well. Or like when you break down like hooks or micro hooks, it's like grabbing people and be like, no, you see what they just did? Like, that's why this video has 1 million views or whatever it is. Yeah.
And that's something that I want to do more on YouTube, just because it's not hard. I mean, it's more simple. Like I could break it down in 90 seconds, but I'm like, I want more time to be able to explain this. And that's something that like I'm going to start a series on, where it's like, you know, one of my favorite people that he's in the fitness space, his name is Mike Israel. He owns Renaissance Periodization, but like he breaks down like other, like celebrity workouts, and he mainly rips on it because he's like, why would you be standing on this and then doing this? Like, it makes no sense.
Yeah.
It's like a exercise scientist reacts to yada yada. I would almost want to do it where it's like social media strategist reacts to like Jeff Nippard's like social content.
Yeah,
and like we
totally.
break down other
Yeah.
pieces of content, because I've realized for a lot of people that's helpful because they see a video and they're like, what actually went into this? Or like, why did I swipe away? I watched a video last week because my girlfriend and I are like want to make pasta. And I watched this video and I'm like, I'm going to take myself through this. I'm just going to watch it on like 1x speed, and it was a YouTube video. And it was 12 minutes long. After 8 minutes, I'm like, I got what I needed. But I'm like, why didn't they earn my attention for the last 4? And I paid very close attention because I'm like, well, they just earned 75% retention time from me. And I watched because I'm like, oh, they showed how to like roll the pasta, whatever. I'm like, that's all I needed to know. The rest of it of how to actually make a dish, I know all that.
Yeah.
But I'm like, what could they have done better potentially to earn 100% of my watch time? They got 75% of it, which is on the back end is going to look great.
Yeah.
But I'm like, that's still 4 minutes that I completely just ignored. And I paid attention is because I'm like, this is what happens with most people on social is they either don't deliver on a payoff, and so they get no watch time and no one even pays attention, or they almost, and I call that blue balling the audience, or they give pieces of information, but then there's no real payoff, and like the audience kind of got what they needed and they're out. Like, I'm going to keep scrolling, right? Yeah. There was no real incentive to continue watching because the reason that they clicked for was what they got after 13 seconds, and they're like, I'm out.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, totally. I feel like one thing that you've been talking about a lot of is like kind of like the resurgence of like long form content, but also like this like behind the scenes like YouTube content. So you want to speak to a little more to that about like why you see things going that way, or like, and how you can even go about that, because I feel like it's a tough balance, especially when you have like limited resources to like do the short form stuff, which is also super important, and make these like long YouTube videos.
That's a great question. I talk on this behind the scenes stuff specifically like under the guise of, I want you to look at a lot of these like larger entrepreneurs that like have built an audience, have built somewhat success. Like I even talk about like the Philadelphia Eagles and I know Aston Villa Football Club, which is in England. They're all going towards like this behind the scenes thing because like obviously like they're well-known names, people know about them, they have the audience interested, right? So now I look at it of, well, other people know of you, they see you on the podcast, they know all these things, but they want to get to know you more, right? Because it's one thing to be on an edited podcast and it to look really great like this, but it's one thing to like be in your home with you. It's one thing to like be in the gym with you. It's one thing to, you know, be more personal with you and feel like, you know, oh wow, you put the same coffee creamer in the coffee that I drink, right? It's little things like that I think people overlook so much that it builds that deeper connection. And I know it sounds so elementary and stupid, but I'm like, this is why people follow people that they do, because they see a version of themselves in someone else that it's like, wow, like you are an actual human. You're not just someone that has 6 million followers or you get a lot of views, whatever. It's like, oh, you actually live like a human, right?
Totally.
That's why I think there's such a disconnect with celebrities, is because I think people look at them as like, you guys just eat fucking 24 karat steak, right? Like gold steak. And like, you don't eat normal things. Like, I don't know, maybe do you go to the bathroom on gold toilets too? Like it just feels like this unattainable lifestyle or this thing that like no one can relate to. And I think people, like you had said, they're craving this level of connection. Like there is a gap for it. And the reason being is because we went from social media pre-2020, where a lot of it was more documentation, more of that lifestyle. And then we had this resurgence or this brand new medium of short form content, which was in the home. You couldn't go anywhere else type thing for people in 2020, 2021. And there was no real like deeper connection outside of what people do in their home, right? And I think a lot of businesses and a lot of brands, a lot of personalities were built on that just via short form, because TikTok was definitely a resurgence. And then, you know, Reels followed along, Shorts, now Facebook Reels, like it really pioneered a lot.
Yeah.
And now the pendulum is swinging the other way, where I think people are just, they're not, I wouldn't say they're sick of it. I think they're exhausted a little bit of like this hyper edited short form content and this constant scrolling. And they almost want to be able to sit with someone for a period of time and just watch and like just hang with them. Like, that's why I love podcasts like this, where it's like you're hanging with people, right? Now, it'd be a little bit cooler if there was like a behind the scenes of like, you know, the conversations we're having a little bit with like the espresso or just shooting the shit on random stuff. Because it's like now you get to feel like you're hanging out. But like, you're going to see the podcast, but like you get to see all the other things that go into it.
Totally.
Right? And so I think a lot of stuff like that, there is that hunger for. And that's why I mentioned a lot of the people that are gearing this way, they know it too. And a lot of the people that I'm communicating with, that especially like I'm finalizing contracts for this year, which will be fucking phenomenal. We could chat off air about. They know they need to go this route too, and it's cool to see because I got reached out to by 3 extremely large people after that video. What's crazy about it, and this is a whole nother tangent, is I filmed that YouTube video at 5 a.m. because I was up at 3. I'm like, I have to film this. Like there was something in me, like it woke me up. I'm like, I need to film this YouTube video. And I set the camera up at like 5. I got it filmed at 5:30. I even made the thumbnail, edited, posted it like the next day. And I cut that clip from it, and like it's at like 30, it's almost at 30,000 likes. And I think it's like over 1 million on IG and then 1.3 on TikTok, which is great. There's something to be said about your energy and alignment within your content. Like if there's something that's in you that needs to be communicated, that will perform the best out of any strategy that I can give you for hooks or micro hooks or retention hacks or anything, because that is the stuff that I just believe in energy as a whole. When that is communicated to an audience, they can feel it. And that's something that I got reached out to from like 3 higher level people that know that they need to make a shift. And I'm like, that's cool. And what's even cool is one of them even implemented a video like that. And I'm like, okay, this is something. And it was cool because the people that I had mentioned in that video, they're also friends with and in that circle. And they're like, oh, got it. We need to be doing this. And we're not. And they also know that, you know, their growth has been good, but they also know that it could be better. You know?
So, and I think people want to know, and I kind of want to know, like, what's your like day to day like, as far as like, you obviously make a lot of content for yourself, but you also do content coaching, and kind of like what is your typical client? How many clients do you have? What kinds of people do you work with and stuff like that?
Yeah. So for example, like today you had mentioned, I have like 3 one-on-one meetings later this afternoon, and then I have to review like a mega YouTube video for just a YouTube strategy client, which we're coming back from YouTube on after 2 years. He's got like $250,000 on. We're trying to hit 1 million this year. So that's a lot of time within like scripting that video, making sure filming's done for that, getting reviews and edits on it. Like it's gonna take me an hour to review it alone, and getting the thumbnail made for that. And then also other clients in terms of like, you know, they're just on IG or they want to expand more to YouTube. And so just understanding like, well, what does that strategy look like to understand what content do we need to make that helps facilitate business growth? You know, and so a lot of that within just that whole social side of it, you know, Monday, Tuesdays are typically more heavy where I'm just like dedicated towards other people. And then Wednesday, do whatever the hell I want. Right? Because like I need that where I'm like, I need to just be able to ideate and like sit with myself and like create content, because for me that is ROI positive. Like when I make content, that is completely ROI positive for everything, and especially with like wanting more speeches and speaking events and everything, like doing podcasts, right? So that's important for me. And then like Thursday, Friday, that's reserved for people want to book like a 90-minute session with me. That's when I have that reserved for. And then I do have like a couple meetings on Friday with stuff like that. So it's not like ridiculously crazy. Like mornings are just more kind of what I want to do, and then afternoons are when I take calls and everything. But a lot of it is more creative intensive, especially with like, you know, like our project management board that I have with everyone, of like, you know, they have to write a script for me a little bit. And the reason we do that is because otherwise they're just shooting from the hip and they feel lost with it. So I'm like, okay, flush out your ideas with everything. And like a lot of my work is like reviewing that and like touching that up a little bit, getting on calls with them and explaining certain things and what does agenda look like for filming, and like reviewing metrics for things, talking people off a ledge, because one client of mine was like, he really wanted to hit 50K and he had been in the negative for a while and he was just like frustrated with things. So it's like, you know, just retooling him. And then some of it is like, you know, a lot of other people are like, well, why is this person doing really well, right? Why is this content working for them, but it's not working for me, right? And it's funny, we actually had a call about this. I'm like, well, let's look at his content compared to yours. And it was really cool because we had a really big breakthrough with stuff like that, where he realized that when he was doing like those reaction videos to other people's clips, like the clip was so small and like he was the hero of the clip. But then we looked at other people's clips and I'm like, well, like the clip that they're reacting to is the hero and they're almost dwarfed by it. And so psychologically, like there's a different play on that. And so it's just fun where, you know, we can break down other people's stuff, because I'm just gonna be honest, other people compare themselves to everyone. And I'm like, okay, cool, well, let's look at it. Like objectively look at it. I have zero emotion when I talk to people. I'm like, I don't give a fuck, because I'm like, there is no emotion attached to any of this. I don't care about the numbers. Like, if you come to me emotional about it, that's fine. I don't care. But like, let's objectively look at it.
Yeah.
Right. And especially even on like 90-minute calls, man, a lot of the issues that I deal with, people have no clue who they're talking to. And that is why I'm so heavy on that.
Yeah.
People really don't know who they're talking to. And you know what's crazy? Like, there's people that I work with that have like 500,000 and millions, and I'm like, you made it this far?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And I'm like, proud of you. But I'm like, if we got that much more clear on things, we could go that much faster.
Yeah.
And it's been really cool to see, because anytime, even when I have my in-person event or anytime I'm on a call with someone, I'm always like, why are you the answer? Like, who do you talk to?
Yeah.
Right? Like, some fitness coaches, they'll talk to me like, you know what, I fucking have this one lady. She's like, well, because I'm a badass at what I do. I'm like, do you think other people are badass at what they do? And I'm like, why are you the answer again?
Yeah.
My whole motto is be a fucking shark. It's because I command so much more out of you.
Yeah.
I don't want this surface level bullshit.
Yeah.
I'm like, why are you the answer? Or I will hang up.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, I don't want this cookie cutter, like, plain type shit.
Yeah.
You know, and it's just, it's always, but the beauty of it is like, it's always a refining process. We're always getting better at understanding that, right? And like, maybe you want to change a little bit of the things you talk about, like the words that you use within it. Like, it's a beautiful thing. It's always like refining that.
Yeah.
Megan, for example, who we chatted about, like, she's going to probably hit 1 million this month, which is still mind blowing to me. She gained 58,000 just yesterday alone.
That's
and like,
so insane.
Her growth has been stupid. But it's because when we first started, a lot of her content, I'm like, you're an asshole. And I'm like, do you like making this content? I'm like, because I watch it and I'm like, you kind of feel like a dick a little bit to people, you know? And she's like, well, I'm trying to like give people like a bitch slap. I'm like, there's a difference between that versus like really kicking them in the nuts. And I'm like, I feel like you're really kicking them with like a steel toe boot.
Yeah.
I'm like, it just really like angry. And she was trying to be like her previous mentors who gave her that direction to make that style. And I'm like, the energy that you talk to me with on this calls, I don't see any of this.
Yeah.
Where is this? And it was, and again, it was that, and that took us 3-4 weeks to even figure out. And I'm like, where is this energy? I'm like, you have this, not like this sassiness, but like this edgy, like you want to talk to these like 20-year-old girls who are like single, they want to look hot, like that's your ideal client. That's who you want to talk to. Great. I'm fine with that. But I'm like, where's this energy? Where I'm like, you now get to be a leader for them, because it's like you can speak their language, and like everything you, like the way that she presents herself in content, that's how she acts. But I'm like, where's this swag? Right? I don't see this.
Yeah.
And that's something where I'm like, let's try that. Right? And like lean into that a little bit more. And I know people look at that as like, that's so silly and stupid, but it's because I'm like, you were being a 150% version of yourself. You're trying to turn it up to a point where it's just like, you're almost trying to overcompensate. But then some people turn it down to 50 where they're trying to like make themselves smaller and like they don't want to sound overpowering and they want to be a little bit. So I'm like, no, be 100% you.
Yeah.
What does that look like?
Yeah.
Right? And like, let's just try that.
Yeah.
And like, it's worked wonders.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. It's been awesome. And I love how you've been able to document her growth, and I feel like it's so meaningful too. And one thing that I love about what you do is when you talk about clients, you always talk about it like coming back to sales. 'Cause like, and we talked about it earlier, like it's like going viral doesn't really mean anything if you're not like, unless you just really want to go viral, which is cool. But if you're not monetizing that, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Well, not just monetizing, but I also look at it of like long term, kind of how we talked about in the beginning. I'm like, is what we're doing right now, is that something that if you were to be asked to speak on stage in front of 10,000 people, like, you're happy with the audience you built?
That's powerful.
Right? Because I'm like, I would rather you be known for something like that and be able to back it up and speak on it of like, yeah, you know what? Like, what I'm doing right now is the version of myself that I want to be in 10 years. Like, if 38-year-old Enrico, like 10 years from now, I'm like, I'm happy with what I'm creating.
Yeah.
I'm like, I want to obviously do better and do more, but I'd feel that's why I feel like no pressure, no anxiety on like talking about this stuff, because I got nothing to hide. And I'm like, I've got all receipts on everything. I'm like, I love it all, right? And like, there's nothing where I'm fronting on shit or trying to be a different version of myself. And I think most people, I'm like, I think the reason why you're scared is like you're either insecure, you're hiding something, or you're trying to impress people that you don't even fucking like.
Yeah.
Right? Like, to be clear too, other tattoo artists, I'm like, are you making content for, again, it's understanding the why. Are you making content for other people that want to get tattoos, or other tattoo artists who aren't going to fucking pay you?
Yeah. Totally.
Like, completely different avatar.
Yeah.
Right? You're trying to flex in front of other tattoo artists because like, oh, I make cool work. Great. Amazing. and they're not paying you.
Yeah, totally.
Right. And so again, it's that whole thesis of like, who are we talking to? It's like really refining, and it's uncomfortable a lot of times because a lot of people, they think they have it nailed down, but I'm like, let me make this abundantly clear to you. My girlfriend and her sister have 27 pages worth of who their ideal client is.
Wow.
They understand from the time that she wakes up in the morning to when she goes to bed, how many pairs of pants she tries on in the morning, how many times she compares her belly hanging over her jeans, how many times she wishes she would have sex with her husband, how many times she feels unconfident at work, how many times she reaches for her snack drawer at the office and like eats the fucking Milky Ways, how many times she will go for the donut instead of eating her lunch, how many times she will talk herself out of her going to a workout, and how many times she will just go home and say fuck it and eat the entire box of Cheez-Its and then do it all over again the next day. Every single thing that goes through her head. And I'm like, you need to get that clear on it. And you need to be an assassin with it. And I know it sounds scary, but like, you think about psychology. Why do you think the best marketers in the world convert like no other? It's because they know exactly everything you go through. They know the words you use. They know the things you don't do. They know all of it as if they live in your home.
Yeah.
All of that. That's why I'm so passionate about that, is because it's all psychology. And when you have that level of understanding about it, you don't care about any algorithm or if Instagram's better, if TikTok's better, if YouTube's better, because it all works. You just understand, here's the psychology.
Totally.
Now, how do I want to present it?
Totally. Yeah. That's awesome.
Oh, that's so brilliant.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's so inspiring. Thank you again, too, for talking about all of this. Like, this is really helpful information. I came in here, I was so tired. Like, I'm feeling a little uninspired, and this has really just kind of like brought me back to life a little bit. So I mean, I really appreciate you just like talking about all this. I also want to know, like, for anybody who's watching, how can we hire you?
Yeah, or how can people work for you? What services do you offer and stuff like that?
Absolutely.
Or not work for you, work with you. Yeah.
Yeah, I appreciate that. I would say just consume my free content. Because if everything there is helpful for you, you should be able to go implement it. And like, I never have anything to want to push or sell. And sometimes this has hurt me, sometimes it doesn't. But I also know that like, I have no agenda with anything. If this podcast even just like was helpful enough, like everything I post should be able to get you in a better place than when you found me.
Yeah.
Right. And if you come to the conclusion on your own that like, you want to work with me, cool. But I would rather you spend 6 to 9 months just consuming everything I do and like, really implement all of it. And like, if you're still struggling, then like reach out. Right.
Yeah.
But otherwise, I would rather people get their feet wet and like get a little bit messy with it and like start to study and start to come to the conclusion on your own, exhaust every possible resource you have. And if you want to get there faster, then we could chat about it.
Yeah.
But let it be known, there is a lot of free, really good content out there. And like, even if it's not me you hire, like I wish you nothing but the best.
Yeah.
And like, as long as I left you better than when I found you, that's all I care about.
Yeah. That's awesome, man. Yeah, and I think that just speaks to what you've been saying this entire episode about how you're passionate about this, and that's powerful, man. For you to be like, this is my recommendation, is like to consume my free shit. Like that's awesome, and I think that speaks to you as a person, and I think that speaks to you as a business and why you do what you do. So, yeah.
Appreciate it.
Thanks again so much for being on here today. Thanks for coming to do a podcast on a Monday morning. You got anything else you want to talk about or get to before we wrap up? I know we covered a lot.
Just be a fucking shark. And the reason I say that is because sharks physically can't swim backwards or they will die. And what a beautiful metaphor for life, where sharks, if they want to go backwards, they still have to go into forward motion. Yeah. So as long as you're continuing to swim forward, you can't lose.
Awesome, man.
I love it.
Cool.
Thank you.
Thank you all so much for tuning in, and we'll talk to you next time.